is good, Fin Nation? What's good? It's your boy Reason. We are back here for another one as mini camps officially opened up for the Miami Dolphins, and they will be going for the next few days as they run today, tomorrow, and Thursday. I'll be live tomorrow with Richmond and Ballgame, but we'll be live a little earlier than normal just to avoid any conflict with the Miami Heat game. So you can expect us tomorrow night to recap day 2 of minicamp. We got a lot to talk about today in regards to the first day. Obviously, the big story, Skylar showed up, but Connor Williams is holding out. We're going to dive deep into this. You know, last Thursday, if you joined me and Neil on Fin Too Deep, that was one of the main topics of the show, are Skylar and Connor Williams quietly holding out, and it's something I've been talking about all offseason, that I was worried about Connor Williams pricing himself out and wanted to get paid in Miami, and here we go. And for all of you patrons and such, you know that, you know, I had known up until a couple weeks ago, they hadn't really dove in head deep into Connor Williams is basically forcing them to sit to the table, because from what I had understood, all focus was on Christian Wilkins and figuring that situation out. And now Connor Williams is forcing them to come to the table a little bit here. You know, we'll see. And it kind of goes back to one of the things I've always, you know, I'm a Chris Grier guy. Everyone knows I support the guy, but one of my biggest pet peeves with Chris Grier is he's never a step ahead of getting things done in terms of contracts, right? Christian Wilkins, last year I was screaming, get it done because of the market. Now you look at the market this year, that market inflated from 14 to 15 being the high end to now you're sitting at $22.5 million per year is the high end. You know, again, Connor Williams should have figured it out right away. And what's funny is Connor Williams creates more cap space for you. And you got the money right now, but I get it. They want to figure out Christian Wilkins, but it kind of goes back to my issue with Chris Grier. My two biggest issues with Chris Grier have always been this. Well, I got three. One, he's kind of killed the narrative of, he used to panic in draft situations. Austin Jackson was a panic pick, for example. But anyways, my two big issues with Chris Grier and what he kind of does is, obviously, I don't like how he never really gets ahead of himself in terms of gets out ahead of contracts, gets them done early so you can restructure and get even more cap relief in year 2. That's, you know, when you got to be able to project stardom to an extent. You got to be able to project, you know, and it was right in front of our eyes that Christian Wilkins was getting better year after year. You were seeing it happen right before your eyes. Now, if he wants to be paid like a top guy, and we can all sit here and agree his pass rush isn't there, and that's what's holding it up, hey, but, you know, we reported weeks ago that they're far apart, and, you know, it's kind of not a good look for Connor Williams that Christian Wilkins is in it for more money at the end of the day, and he's still showing up. Christian Wilkins been here in Miami longer than Connor Williams. Connor been here for 1 year, already wants the bag. And it's because he knows the importance, and that goes back to my second biggest issue with Chris Grier. I've always felt he treats the offensive line like the running back room. I felt he either, it's one or two things. Either he devalues the offensive line, or the protocols and everything in place in terms of what they look for in scouting the offensive line before McDaniel and company arrived is just so flawed in terms of the prototypes they look for, athletic profiles, you know, what they're looking for in their linemen. They haven't been successful, though. So, like, I don't like how he doesn't get ahead of things. And, you know, he doesn't have the foresight to get ahead of things like that with the contracts and, you know, the big ones that matter. And my other thing is, you know, I just feel like to an extent he devalues the offensive line, and that leaks into the Connor Williams situation for me right now. You know, listen, I've said this before multiple times. The Dolphins are notorious for lowballing when they start off negotiations, but Sometimes you got to take care of. I get it. You get money clears up, and you want to go get shiny new toys, but you restructured and you took care of Jalen Ramsey real quick to make that trade happen. You know, if Wilkins is playing hardball, you got to show Wilkins, and that gives you more leverage to move on. Now, Connor Williams has all the leverage in the world here. Despite I see people trying to say he doesn't have leverage. I mean, I don't know what dude. We have what depth do we have behind Connor Williams? Give me a break. And paying early does not run the risk of huge dude. Paying early, look at how early they paid Mahomes and how many times they've restructured that contract. If you would have paid Christian Wilkins last year, okay, check this. You would have got him at a $15 million a year hit, and you would have been able to restructure him this year again as soon as the contract kicks in, because you wouldn't have no 50-year option. You got to be able to have foresight, man. You have to be able to have foresight with these type of things. I'm sorry. Just like they didn't have the foresight when they made Byron Jones the highest paid player at his position, what that was going to do to Xavier Howard, and we ended up paying for it. You got to have foresight with these things, man. Listen, I love how they structure contracts. I'm the only one in this that constantly drops Brandon Shore's community and give Brandon Shore's name and get in this community and gives him his flowers. I give Brandon Shore his flowers all day with how they structure these contracts. That's not the issue. You got to be able to, and this is any sport. This is not just relative to football. The longer you wait to pay someone, especially if they're on an upwards trajectory, the higher the premium is going to be once it gets there. Now, the issue that we've ran into with Christian Wilkins, this happens to be the offseason of all these defensive the market has gone through the roof. The market has jumped like 6 million. Like 6-7 million. It's ridiculous right now. And we're paying for it because we didn't get ahead of it last year. And now it's put us in a predicament. And I got to give Zach Skylar his flowers. He showed up. He's doing his damn thing. And this, again, is for every sport. And we've had multiple examples where us not getting ahead of the contract has bitten us in the ass in Miami already. Don't know what to say. Like, you could have probably locked down Robert Hunt Look at Robert Hunt. You could have probably locked down Robert Hunt for super cheap this offseason. Watch, he goes out and has a Pro Bowl season, and now his premium is up. And we all know Robert Hunt is part of this offensive line moving forward. So there's another guy you could even throw to it. Why hasn't Robert Hunt been paid? Why isn't you do not have a 50-year option with Robert Hunt? He's a second-round pick. You know he's going to be here long-term. I'd be locking him down right now because I could be getting him for the cheap. You ain't paying Robert Hunt no 8, 9, 10 million a year right now. You ain't paying Robert Hunt that money right now. But if he has an all-pro or Pro Bowl season this year, guess what you're doing? Guess how much you're forking out? All of a sudden. And if you could have gotten him at $5 or $6 million right now, that $3-4 million goes a long way, especially in a team right now that sits about $31 million over the cap heading into next year with a bunch of restructures and potential cuts on the horizon anyways. So, I mean, and Hunt would sign now because that's financial security. These players want financial security. Hunt could get hurt week 1. You need financial security. So, listen, I don't want to hear no crying because I told all y'all when Robert Hunt, we drafted him, people were talking right tackle. I said, no, this guy's going to be an all-pro. I just called him a guard from the moment we drafted him. In fact, me and EM talked about him on this channel the night before we drafted him, about how big a good a fit he would be. And, that guy goes all pro and that guy goes Pro Bowl and we got to pay for it. We didn't get out ahead of it. I don't want to hear a damn word about it. Really don't. Because I've been on this, I had people hitting me up today. Oh, man, you're right about Connor. You're right about Connor. You saw this coming from a mile away. It is what it is. It's not hard to see. These people want to get paid. And you got to, some of them, listen, there's going to be tough decisions, 110%. But who have we extended in-house right now? Christian Wilkins, Robert Hunt, and Connor Williams and Zach Skylar are 4 major pieces, 2 on each side of the football. We haven't got any one of those handled. It's not like we're sitting here saying, well, at least they've got, this. None of them. So, another thing I want to talk about, I heard about some, people, I love people who contradict themselves, people who are hypocritical, but I heard people complaining about gatekeeping while in this community, while gatekeeping where Dolphin fans come from. This narrative I've seen out there, because I know people are mad that the kid from Canada knows a lot more about ball than they do. And I saw people gatekeeping over where we've had people on this channel from all over, from Jamaica, Bahamas, Puerto Rico, UK, Spain, Mexico. It doesn't matter where you're from as long as you're a Dolphin fan. As long as you bleed aqua and orange, it doesn't matter. And if people want to sit here and gatekeep because their panties are in a bunch, that the kid from Canada knows a whole lot more about ball than them and is a whole lot right, he's right a whole lot more than they are. He knows how to break down film, actually knows how to break it down film a whole lot better than their favorite little guys do. Listen, you want to direct it at me, knock yourself out, but don't start gatekeeping this fan base and where our fans come from. Because I'm gonna give you all a real dose of reality right here for you. All of you that try to crap on these fans that influxed into this fan base due to Tua Tagovailoa, whether they were Samoan, whether they were Alabama fans, whatever the case may be. I want to give y'all a real right now. Let me hit y'all with what it was back in March 2020 when I started this channel. Okay? When we started the Tuesday night panel, TD only had 5,000 subs. We got up to almost 9,000 with the Tuesday night panel because it became the first live show that we were talking about 500 or more people were watching at once. Okay? That's one. Dougley was just over about 10 or 12. He was just at about 10 or 12,000 subs back then. People don't realize, okay, the reason why a lot of these people and some of them who hate on Tua are eating in this community, a big portion of it is because of Tua Tagovailoa. Tua Tagovailoa caused a massive influx of eyes and has continued so since he's been here. Y'all weren't doing these. Y'all weren't moving anything like this when Tannehill was around. When Josh Rosen was potentially the guy. See, not only me and EM, did we lead the bandwagon for drafting Tua on this platform for Dolphin fans, but whether I led that bandwagon or not, at least I'm objective enough to realize where a lot of our eyes and a lot of the success that's been built up over the years has come from. Now, beyond that, his name gives you the push towards the eyes. It's up to people themselves to keep those eyes captivated and, to keep those people coming back, which I think I've done a damn fine job of. And, but people need to, it's funny especially when people with platforms on here try to shit on Tua, realize you're biting the hand that essentially feeds you. That's what the whole It's so ironic. But hey, listen, that's why I'm the smart kid from Canada, and these people aren't even smart enough who are gatekeeping to realize that the guy they hate on is the only reason why a lot of these people have relevance. So I'm just saying, hey, next time you buy something from YouTube, why don't you send some flowers to the Tagovailoa family, huh? And thank them a little bit, huh? Real talk. That's a reality check for these people, okay? Because if Tua left and we got some Joe Schmo come in here, what do you think what do you think y'all would be eating with Gardner Minshew at the helm, huh? First of all, we'd be losing on the field. Our on-field product would be subpar. So as fans, you'd be pulling your hair out. Then as people with platforms, as you see the numbers dive, you'd be pulling your hair out from that. Just saying. And what's funny is they still probably would have hated on Marino too. I tell you, all these people who hate on Tua, it's funny. That's why I say, I know they weren't fans when Marino was around because he's the tendencies, the way these people move, they would have hated on Marino. If this community was around when Marino was around, I'd still be battling people hating on the greatest natural thrower of the football. I can guarantee you I'd be battling people over Dan Marino. I can almost guarantee you. You know what? Because they'd be saying he ain't won anything. People, our own fan base would be saying, oh, those numbers are great, but he ain't won anything. It would have been good for the first, let's say this community started in 83 and we would have rode together till 99. It would have been all fun and games for the first couple of years, going to the Super Bowl, the numbers, blah, 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 blah. But we would have got into, I guarantee you, we would have got into those 90s because I know for a fact it was happening down in Miami. Real time. What do you think the idiots we would have had to battle on YouTube and Twitter and Facebook and back in, the 90s? It would have been the same exact thing. It would have been the exact same thing. It literally, and a lot of us are fans because of Marino. I wore 13. Listen, Dan Marino and Mario Lemieux were my biggest idols growing up, but I didn't wear 66. I wore 13 in hockey. I wore 13 in baseball. I wore 13 in football. 13 is my favorite number. 13 is my lucky number. It's Dan, like my original screen name, Reason 13. When I got into this community. Listen, we may not have won anything, but the memories Marino gave me, I will cherish for a lifetime. And it shows how special of a player he was and as special of an athlete as he was, that even though he never brought us a championship, he will always be one of the few players you can say that transcends the logo and one of the few names on the back of the jersey you can root with on par with the logo. And so, but they would have hated, I can almost guarantee you they would have hated on him. And also, I got to talk about this again because now it's coming public. Chase Young, now the rumors are ramping up that Chase Young can be had for, my Lord. And I remember people trying to say, whoa, well, we need to draft. Oh, you wouldn't draft Chase Young over Tua? Nah. And me and EM, telling people schemes matter. He don't fit the scheme. The things we would ask an edge player to do, he never did at Ohio State. He was just a pin your ear back. And now what's happening? Huh? He hasn't turned into the complete guy. While when you go back to my scouting report, 2021 top 10 edge player board, and you listen to what I said about Jaelan Phillips, and I said, if not for the injuries at UCLA, this kid would be in the same conversation as Chase Young, and he's going to be better. And when you go watch my Jaelan Phillips prospect profile from when we drafted him, Jaelan Phillips is a third Bosa brother. When you look at everything he's got, man, we didn't need Chase. I'm Salute for taking Jaelan Phillips. Because that kid is taking off this year. I've been saying it. Last year, you go back and you watch the preseason roundtable with me, Dougley, and all the boys. and I said he would enter the top 10 last year as an edge rusher, and this year he would enter the top 5, top 3. You'd enter that discussion. And this kid looked like he's built for it. And last year he entered the top 10 in pass rush win rate. Now, again, I'm going to tell you all this. It goes back to Boyer. Fangio knows how to use Phillips. Wait till y'all see this. I ain't going to hear none of y'all crying about Chubb. I ain't going to hear nothing about Chubb this year. As if they stay healthy, I think they could both have 12 sacks or more. I think that's very possible. I think this defense is going to feast. Because if you didn't hear what Jalen Ramsey did, and I'll play the clip for you in a minute. Sorry, or we'll go over it in a bit here. Jalen Ramsey said today, and we'll go over it in the article later, this is the best defense he's ever been a part of. Think about that for a second. And think about that defense that won with the Rams. Think of how good that defense was. And Jalen Ramsey's sitting here saying this is the best defense, and he's going all the way to the coordinator here. So, listen, Raheem Morris is a great coordinator and was a great defensive coordinator, but he ain't no Vic. He ain't no Vic. So let's get into this. Let's start off with some tidbits from McDaniel's presser today. Let's get into this. All right, guys?
Skylar and Connor Williams, are they here and expected to participate?
We have pretty much, like the most of the offseason, we've had pretty much everyone here. There's been individuals that have their individual situations to take care of. As far as this camp, Skylar will be here. Connor won't, which we've been in direct communication. I'm not going to get necessarily into the nuts and bolts of his business here. But I have 89 guys I would love to talk about that are here, that are going to be out here today.
So Connor is the only one that is not here?
Yes, I believe that's the case. Yes.
I guess it's an important distinction. It's just an excused absence.
No, it's not excused, but again, we've been in communication, so
So there you go.
Worried about it. Worried
Not
about
an
the
excused
dudes that are
absence.
here,
He's
for
officially holding out.
Like one of the 89 guys that are here is Jaelan Phillips.
Baldy's there, baby.
And I felt last year during the course of the season, we just saw this arc. This kid just kind of explode.
Baldy.
What have you seen this offseason? What does Vic see in him right now? What do you see as this arc of development?
I see. I've seen him practice at a level that's far superior than any other level of practice that I've seen from him since I've been here.
He's eating this year, baby.
So take that for what it's worth. You don't.
Go.
I think it's very important not to get ahead of yourselves. It's hard, very hard for people on the outside because like you're excited about the team, so you're thinking of September. We're thinking a day at a time, and all I know is the last practices I'm seeing him have been the best practices that he's had. I think that's very encouraging.
Let's go.
That one of the things that Vic and I shared on his interview was his appreciation for that for Jaylen in particular, who he was very high on coming out. So
come on, Vicky.
Very happy with where he's at. He is goal-oriented, great human being that has his vision set on what he wants to do, and now he's just
Jalen's the apple of Vicky eye. I'm telling all y'all.
And it's cool to watch a young player
God, this man's gonna strike fear into people's
not
hearts.
get caught up in September.
Let's go.
And get more focus on June 6th, which is the only day that exists.
Backing off of Baldy's question, obviously Bradley got here mid-season, and you just mentioned Jaylen. Have you seen anything behind the scenes with those two as they try to maybe build their?
Well, what's cool is, I really appreciate you guys. You'll notice it today. Just in general, they gravitate to each other, and
they might be the best.
That to me speaks of everything that I want in a team. I don't want players trying to have success
I'm hyped.
in spite of someone. I want players competing, making each other better, and trying to be the best versions of themselves. So they have been, they want to be a great pair, and they want to be a part of a great defense, and they're handling that the right way.
Let's go.
Instead of just wishing and hoping. They're working between Coach Fangio, who has, coached elite edge players since I was
and he's excited about Jaylen.
before kindergarten, maybe. Then
and he's excited about Jaylen.
With Coach Slowick and Coach Harmon's been helping out. That I've seen significant gains and improvements on our edge play that I'm fired up about. And all you can do is really position yourself to be at your very best for when pads come on in July. Practice 3 for that position, and that's what I've seen them do, working on footwork, hand placement, disruption. They're a handful, and that's a good thing. Not the best thing for a practice that you're trying to orchestrate some sort of success, but you'd rather practice against it than have a surprise come week whatever, which is imperative for really our offense and defense. Our defense needs high productivity from edge play, as well as you have to go against productive edge play because the really good teams generally have that, whether it's a 4-3 or 3-4, and you're going to have to
McDaniel's such
figure
an
out
edge fan, right?
how to
Said he'd draft an edge rusher every year if he could.
Offense against that.
Which regarding Fangio, I know obviously he's a defensive coordinator, but I'm curious in this short amount of time he's been here, how has he positively impacted the offense and the way you guys see things, just having that, experience in mind to bounce things off?
Phenomenal question.
We got him.
We're just pumping out great questions today. I'm proud of all you guys. An unintended consequence, it's something that as a football coach, but it's not steadfast to the forefront of your thought process when you're making decisions like that. Okay, what defense do you want to run? Who do you want in charge of it? Your mind goes straight to, I want the best defense we can have. I want the best defensive coordinator we can have. I think that has been accomplished. A subset unintended consequence is that the technique with which they perform their assignments really takes advantage of poor technique offensively. Meaning that the way they pattern match and the way they really play with vision as a receiver, it's the best training you could get. As a tight end, it's the best training you can get. All these route runners are getting this elite training because they're getting made pay when their technique's off. If they're not vertical enough on their stem. Traditionally, from a coach's perspective, I have to say, yeah, this worked. However, in game situation, it probably won't. And that you're kind of selling to them, and you have to grab a game clip and whatever. It is so much more efficient and better for the offensive coaches when something that we've emphasized doesn't get done and the defense makes you pay. Well, we're pushing that envelope on both sides of the ball now, where and my ultimate desire, I want a good team. I don't want to go out there today and have the defense dominate the offense or vice versa. I want guys trading punches, handling adversity. All of those things happen when schemes are. Good answer. I mean, you're just gonna leave me hanging? We had I know the microphone's not gonna pick up that random pterodactyl sound that I just heard. But okay. Anyway, so what was I saying? So and what we're starting to see is there'll be 11 guys out there, one offensive player will be off, and the play will not work at all. Or one defensive player will be off, and it will be a big play. That's what, for me as a head coach, That's how I go to practice. I want punches traded left and right. That's the game that we play. And that's how you get better at it. And that's what I'm starting to see. Unintended consequence of Vic and his system is the system is so sound and true and coached. The defensive coaching staff has done a phenomenal job giving answers to the test through technique to the players that both sides of the ball are benefiting for sure.
This is something I've been talking about all off season since we got Fangio. You know, we know the impact he had. You know, he was brought over by Philadelphia to scout for the offense, and you know, you look at right now, and it's something I've been talking about the whole off season, and you know, I've even brought it up to reporters. You know, South Florida reporters we've had up here. You know, just the fact that we've seen it, how he beats the blitz. We've seen how he beats the rush. You know, we've seen how he beats press and man. And that's because Tua saw it so often, and our offense saw it so often in camp and in the offseason while Flores was here. Now, I knew the byproduct of Fangio would be, really, this is the last defense he has to unlock. You go to the San Fran game, you know, throws were there. They were trying to take away the middle of the field, but throws were there. Tua just had an off day. Then you go to the Chargers game, Staley, Fangio disciple, sees that, you know, the defense being run by the 49ers, again, another spinoff of Fangio's defense. Okay, they're they're taking away the middle of the field, but the guys are still open. Tua's just missing them. What do I got to do? Well, I got to add another layer to it, and he starts rerouting people. Well, now we got the guy in the building who's going to ID that stuff. He's going to be on a headset with McDaniel, Tua. They're going to be prepared for these guys. You know, this Fangio is really a huge key to unlocking another level of this defense, let alone all the keys that we're going to be unlocking this defense in year 2 alone, with guys getting more used to it. We hear Tua's running it at a more efficient rate in minicamp and at OTAs. I mean, the man was wearing the orange jersey today. So, you know, listen, it is man, when we are on the precipice of a top 10 offense and top 10 defense. Now, when you look at Bradley Chubb and the Phillips hype, you know, I'm telling you, Fangio is salivating. One of the reasons why he took this job, I believe, is he knows this defense is going to, as much as he's going to make them look good, they're going to make him look real good too. Zach Skylar showing up. I love it, even though we know he wants a contract. Connor Williams, listen, we'll get into it a bit more here in a second, but, you know, would love him to actually show up. Really would. So a lot to unpack there. Let's start off before we get into the recap for the day. Let's just continue on about the Connor Williams just quickly here. Last little piece of information because Omar Kelly came out with a really informative article before I went live here. So you've made your point, Connor Williams. Now come to work. Connor Williams will cost himself $93,000 by continuing to skip the Dolphins mandatory minicamp, pushing for a new deal. Connor Williams deserves a round of applause for his bravery because in rare instances when NFL players have the hammer, they need to swing it. NFL teams do it all the time when they void contracts they wrote and signed, often releasing players at inappropriate moments or shake down an established veteran, forcing them to take a pay cut for whatever reason. Then these teams justify with, it's not personal, it's business. Well, Williams is swinging the hammer by skipping all the Miami Dolphins offseason program as he and his agent push to get a new contract, and his absence is noticeable. Center skipped the first day of Dolphins mandatory minicamp session as a means of protesting the fact he's slated to earn just $7 million in the final year of a 2-year, $14 million contract, and he wants the Dolphins to extend him. The team desperately needs Williams to help stabilize the first team offensive line, which is already practicing without Teron Armstead. But Williams figuratively is mimicking Cuba Gooding Jr. character Rod Tidwell in the movie Jerry Maguire, metaphorically screaming, "Show me the money." Williams played well last season and wants to be rewarded for it with some financial security. And in my opinion, a deal should have been done months ago because he's the foundational piece I want Miami's offensive line to be built around for the next few seasons. Problem is, there are 29 players with expiring contracts jockeying to get their slice of the $13 million cap space the Dolphins received for Byron Jones' June 1st release last week. Williams was the only one bold enough to draw a line in the sand, and as a result, he's subject to be fined just north of $93,000 if he skips all 3 days of mandatory minicamp because teams can dock players $15,515 for the first missed day, $31,030 for the second, and $46,540 for the third. If I were Williams, I'd follow Rashad Jones' lead and show up for the rest of this week's minicamp practice after skipping the first day. Jones, a Pro Bowl safety for the Dolphins, did that one camp during the Adam Gase era. He stole all the headlines by skipping the first day of mandatory minicamp, then carrying the story forward by attending day 2 and pleaded his case for a new deal to the media. It was brilliant. Wouldn't you know, Jones got his deal redone before the regular season started. He pimped the system, and Williams can too. According to the CBA language, simply showing up is the requirement for minicamp and training camp participation is not. Williams would save himself the remaining $77,570 by attending the final 2 days of minicamp, watching his teammates work instead of sitting at home, and potentially having pimped out Mercedes docked from his paycheck. The Dolphins are seeing just how valuable Williams is to the offense, watching these center tryouts Miami has been putting the interior linemen through just to make it through these OTA practices. But will it lead to a pay increase for Williams, who will be the 8th highest paid center in the NFL in 2023? I mean, he's paid like a top 10. The top 6 centers in the NFL all cleared $10.5 million in take-home salary this upcoming season, and that's likely the stratosphere Williams wants to enter. I mean, if it's $3.5 million and you got 13, just do it. This season, the Dolphins have 29 players on one-year deals and another 12 on play-for-play contracts, which means Miami can release them after the 2023 season with little to no penalty, creating an identical amount of cap space. Closed mouths don't get fed, especially in this financial climate Miami is entering, where veterans will be jockeying for the remaining cap space available before Tua Tagovailoa's second contract eats up roughly 20% of the team's cap space in 2024-2025. The offseason is the time for players to take a stand when it comes to the messed up business of football and push for new or better deals. Williams should be applauded for doing that, but someone should tell him there's no need to throw away $77,570 when he can just show up and watch practice like Skylar. Skylar, who's in the exact same position as Williams, pushing for a new deal, decided to attend the session Tuesday after skipping a few OTA weeks, but only watched minicamp while his people push for a new contract. And I would agree with that. You don't got to participate. Just show up. I mean, show at least you're willing to be a leader too. You know what I mean? Even through trying to handle your financial situation with the Miami Dolphins. You know, it's interesting how, you know, he's only been here for a year. He wants to enter that 10.5 or more stratosphere. So we'll see. We will see. I mean, you know, listen, this was going to be the problem. This was going to be the problem with having to pay. You know, this was going to have to be the problem with paying Wilkins and this big money we're spending on defense right now. It's going to start eating into, you know, our offensive line. And my issue here is if you know Tua is the guy or you think Tua is the guy, you have to invest in the offensive line as much as you've invested in these weapons. I mean, you just can't. You just can't continue to nickel and dime the offensive line. Pay Connor. He only wants about $4 million more than what he's really getting right now. You did this to yourself by moving him to center. You better pay him or you better get his replacement. That's how I look at this. All right. Heading over, let's get into it. the recap from day one. And I got 3 minutes of highlights from day one. So let's go over all the highlights from today before we recap from all the different outlets. So you see the boys on the field doing their stretching. Tua in the orange jersey as the last MVP of practice for this year. Let's go.
Let's get red!
Love
This guy here.
X and Ramsey, love it. And there is Uno rolling out. Shout out him. Tua donated $10,000 to Eric's GoFundMe. Shout out to Tua. Pad work for the linebackers. Shout out to Cheetah. He donated like $7. Linebackers getting it in. All the interior guys. See Andrew Van Ginkle with the interiors. Duke Riley with the orange jersey for the defense.
Come on, we gotta beat a fucking engine.
Let's go. Gotta love just Aubrey and every boys hitting those sleds, and there you go. There you see Ramsey backpedaling and shifting, doing his thing. And Tua just vibing. That's crazy. Hill. There you go. There's Hill. See the quarterbacks putting in the work. Corner of the end zone throws. Right on the money. Right on the money. Look at Easy E. Ooh, back in the end zone, baby. And then Chosen again with the toe tap. Chosen getting it done. Man, look at that, huh? Chosen just getting it done. He continues to impress. That boy continues. Man, Chosen. Locked in right now. All right, let's get into it. Let's get into the recap. So, it won't decide a starting spot, but the competition for the Dolphins' backup quarterback position is arguably the most important Miami faces, given the injury questions surrounding Tua Tagovailoa. On the first day of the team's mandatory minicamp on Tuesday, second-year player Skylar Thompson continued to make his case for the number 2 job. The Dolphins opened and mainly conducted team drills with 11-11 red zone work, and Thompson, a 2022 7th-round pick, shined in the situational drill, connecting with pass catchers for multiple touchdowns. His first was a short pass to running back Salvin Ahmed, who was uncovered in the flat, and what was arguably his best throw of the session. Thompson found River Craycraft for a touchdown on a back shoulder throw. Run in the offseason practices, he was in the backfield multiple times for a sack and tackles for loss. In 11-11 red zone work, Tino Ellis recorded a pass breakup while covering wide receiver Freddie Swain in the corner of the end zone. On the very next play, Mike White found receiver Robbie Chosen for a short touchdown in the corner of the end zone over Ellis. White and Chosen connected for another score in short red zone drills. Undrafted cornerback Bryce Thompson intercepted Skylar Thompson after wide receiver Eric Izakama tripped running a route. Tagovailoa wore the orange jersey, awarded to the best practice player in the previous session. Along with Connor Williams, who Coach Mike McDaniel said he's in communication with, 3 players were not at practice. Braylon Sanders, an offensive lineman, Jaron Christensen, and Cedric Aboye. Cornerback Troy Williams was at practice for the first time since tearing his ACL in last year's preseason opener, but did not participate in team drills. Defensive backs Nick Needham and Brandon Jones also continued to sit out team drills as they return from severe leg injuries they sustained last season. And a handful of veterans were at practice but did not participate, including Tyreek Hill, Teron Armstead, and Jaelan Phillips. So, man, guys in attendance, it's going down. Man, minicamp is upon us. Welcome to the Pro Bowl level. Just the 2 of us. Love it. Love it. Love it. So Mitchell Agude continues to impress. Gotta love that. And Skylar Thompson, I mean, you know, Barry can now count Daniel Oifusi as another one who's not really a fan so far of what they've seen from Mike White. So we'll see how that all works out. We will see how that all works out. Continuing on, moving on to the Sun Sentinel. And obviously the homie, friend of the channel, David Ferones. Going over to him and what he said today. He's going to talk about Connor Williams a little bit and then the observations. As the Miami Dolphins shifted from OTAs the past 2 weeks to mandatory minicamp, center Connor Williams was not with the team. Mike McDaniel said it's not an excused absence for Williams, and we've gone over what he said. Williams is entering the final season of his current contract. He's set to make $8.375 million in 2023 after transitioning from guard to center in 2022 with Miami. So Miami had such players such as Tyreek Hill, Zach Skylar, or Sealer, whichever one you want to say, and left tackle Teron Armstead back with the team after they were not seen on the practice field during OTA sessions that were open to the media the last 2 weeks. None of those 3 practiced during team drills Tuesday. Sealer and fellow defensive tackle Christian Wilkins are among other key players who are on final years of the deal. So of Owen, listen to what Hunt said. Right? Connor's dealing with the situation, how he deals with it, said Robert Hunt, of not having his fellow offensive lineman next to him in minicamp. I talked to him, went to dinner with him for his birthday. Connor's good. Of his own contract extension, and he enters the final year of his rookie contract, he says, I'll leave that up to the people up front and my agents. Of course, I've got some say in it, but it's the least of my worries right now. With Williams on drills, Liam Eichenberg, who still hopes to win the left guard spot, has been taking snaps at center. Jaelan Phillips continues to impress. And then the practice observations here. Tagovailoa wore the orange jersey Tuesday as the previous practice outstanding performer, meaning that's how he concluded OTAs. Under the orange jersey designation, he got to select music. The musical vibe was chill and islandish, appropriate being that Tagovailoa is from Hawaii, and among the selections were Somewhere Over the Rainbow, the Israel one, which is Bomb, the island one, Don't Stop Believin', Boogie Shoes, Celebration, Let It Whip, Past the Dutchie, Killing Me Softly with his song. Tua Tagovailoa had a touchdown pass to fullback Alec Ingold in the 10-yard line on the first play of 7-on-7. For the most part, Tagovailoa was accurate as usual Tuesday. Tagovailoa followed with a touchdown pass to wide receiver Robbie Chosen, his second read. Cornerbacks Xavier Howard and Noah Monogany had nice coverage on incomplete passes to Durham Smythe and Cedric Wilson Jr. Defensive backs had a decent showing overall on a day with lots of give and take between the offense and defense in the passing game. Skylar Thompson had a 10-yard touchdown pass to rookie running back Devin A-Chain on a wheel route. Thompson followed that with a touchdown pass to Eric Saubert on a low-key but fairly productive day for tight ends. Wide receiver River, they must have saw on my poll, wondering if we got the words tight end group. There you go. Wide receiver River Craycraft made a nice adjustment while falling down in double coverage to make a touchdown reception from Thompson. Gino Ellis had a good pass breakup against wide receiver Freddie Swain on a ball thrown by Mike White. Duke Riley had a sack against Thompson, getting past James Tunstall. Pass protection was better up the middle than on the edges. Malik Reed snipped out a screen pass to Jalen Waddle. Tyler Kroft had a nice juggling touchdown reception versus Justin Bethel, who came back with a pass broken up for Saubert on the next play. James Blackman, who didn't see much in team drills, appeared to be throwing with more purpose and authority. Jake Bailey and Michael Turk looked good placing balls inside the 10-yard line in individual drills. Bailey is the favorite to replace Thomas Morstead. And among the players that didn't fully participate in Tuesday's minicamp were offensive tackle Teron Armstead, Nick Needham, Jalen Ramsey, Trill Williams, Zach Seiler, Phillips, Tyreek Hill, Keon Crossan, Channing Tindall, Brandon Jones, and defensive lineman Jalen Twyman. So there you go. We actually have got more names with this update. And interesting enough to me, why is Channing Tindall not out there? Because he cannot afford to be missing time. All right? Now we're seeing Duke Riley even had a sack today. Another thing, too, here that, with the Devon A. Chain wheel route is mentioned here. That wasn't mentioned in the last one. So, hey, and River Craycraft making some nice plays, too, today. He's going for that 6. And another thing, too, we're hearing that Michael Turk is keeping up with Bailey, placing balls inside the 10-yard line. So, some positive things coming out of there from David Frones. All right, continuing on here. All right. Just going over what Travis Wingfield had today. He said he continues to come away impressed with the way the coverage communicates, passes off different route combos. Though the linebackers pop, Malik Reed had a sack and a run stuff in team. Mitchell Agude was all over the field. Van Ginkel was impressive stuffing the run. Anderson got open, scored a handful of touchdowns today, including a beautiful line drive throw from White to the back pylon. Speaking of QBs, he's loving the way Tua is getting through his reads. McDaniel discussed how his defense is so fundamentally sound, and he thinks it's benefiting quarterback one. He said, he mentioned when breaking down Tyreek's tape how detailed he is in every step to maximize the spacing of each route, and he's seeing that same with Waddle. Understands timing his routes so that he's pushing guys to their heels, using that explosion to give QBs easy throws. Also made a crazy one-hand grab today, apparently. Christian Wilkins is a daily thing. Sacks, run defense, retrace effort. He's undeniable. Conversely, he thought Robert Hunt and Liam Eichenberg were really good on the O-line, and we can guess Liam Eichenberg is at center. I'm guessing if Connor Williams ain't out there, it's probably Feeney and Eichenberg at center. He thought Garrett Nelson was good today, as was Zeke Vandenberg. Made a ton of plays, tagging off in the run game right at the line of scrimmage. So there you go. A little, Travis provides us with a little UDFA talk, right? Giving Zeke Vandenberg and Garrett Nelson some flowers there a little bit too, right? And a good thing here to hear from me, Waddle looks like he's taking that next step with his route running when he was already a good route runner. So he's just becoming explosive. I love it, baby. I love it. 5 observations from Omar Kelly from today. The red zone work is his favorite day of football practice because if your quarterback is half decent, it'll feature a ton of scoring. After all, the offense starts each drive on the 20-yard line and moves in with every completion. Those weekly practices require finger snap speed decisions on offense and defense and pinpoint passes. Here are his 5 observations from the first of 3 minicamp sessions the Dolphins are holding this week. He said, don't sleep on Skylar. Skylar continued his campaign to be the number 2 quarterback with a strong red zone performance Tuesday. He had a series that included 2 touchdown passes to Tyler Kroft on short throws. One wasn't perfectly placed, but Kroft beat Justin Bethel for the back of the end zone reception. Thompson wasn't perfect on the play. He threw an interception. Wasn't perfect on the day. He threw an interception to Bryce Thompson that Bryce Thompson pulled in after Eric Zakama fell down on the route, and that was the only interception of the day. He's already suggested Mike White could be in trouble because of his lackluster arm, and Omar is officially doubling down because of how Thompson looks at practice as a practice performer, though he does say it clearly didn't translate to games last season, though. For the record, White had a solid day, but throwing short passes, which is required on red zone, benefits him. He loves Mitchell Agude, continues to hype him up. He said the University of Miami starter of the Dolphins added as an undrafted rookie was so dominant Tuesday, he might cost Keon Smith his training camp roster spot. Smith, the offensive tackle with snapping experience, had no chance blocking Agude, who was a force on the edges, especially when the team isn't in pads. Agude had nearly a half dozen impact plays in his 20 to 30 snaps. We're talking about would-be snacks, tackles for a loss, stops on running plays, pressures that can move a quarterback off his mark. Agude reminds him of Chris McCain, who was another twitchy player. Bailey versus Turk. Saw the punters punting for the first time this offseason. And while Michael Turk has a leg that can bruise 50-yard punts, he lacked the hang time that Jake Bailey had during practice Tuesday. Maybe it was one day, but the Dolphins need a punter to pinpoint the ball inside the 20-yard line, not just boom it downfield with little hang time. Bailey, a former Pro Bowl punter who was guaranteed all of his $1.23 million, shouldn't overlook Turk, but based on my first look at the punter battle, I'm not sure I'm willing to flush $1.23 million down the toilet for a punter who produces less hang time. But notice how Omar was one of the guys who's basically saying Bailey's a lock to now sounds a little bit more open to it. Who wants to be tight end number 2? Because it was a red zone day, we got a chance to see tight ends come alive in the offense. Croft was his top performer out of everyone not named Durham Smythe, who had a relatively quiet day. During a hurry-up situation 11-11, he saw Smythe run the slowest route possible, but Tua found him wide open in the seam for a 15-yard gain that delivered a first down. He can't reveal much more about the play, but the fact that the defense opted not to cover Smythe was a head-scratching decision, especially with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle not being on the field for the snap. That number 2 tight end spot is wide open. Well, when I say wide open, it's the size of the Grand Canyon. He can't pick it right now. And here's a good one. Trill Williams is massive. Pause. We got to look at Williams for the first time all offseason. He looks jacked. Williams is listed at 6'1", 202. He's probably bigger. Looks like the knee injury he was rehabbing for the past 10 months made him do chest and arm work all fall in spring as well. The former Syracuse standout is clearly the size of a safety, which is something we've been talking about all offseason. I've been hearing he was going to get shifted to safety. Now they're saying he's the size of one, which might explain why his father has been hinting at a position switch this offseason. Williams worked on the side, and I couldn't get a sense of his movement during skill practice, but I'm excited to see the former cornerback make the same transition Bobby McCain, Jamal Perry, and Elijah Campbell made before him from cornerback to safety. Speaking of the secondary, Jalen Ramsey, Brandon Jones, Nick Needham, and Keon Cross were in attendance, but they were not participants. Deshaun Elliott did individual work, but no team work. So there you go. Trill Williams looks jacked, ready to take it on. Now that's 2 people we've heard talk about Bailey versus Turk. And Mitchell Agude just keeps to impress. And Mike White. What are you going to do with Mike White? That is the real question here. That is the real question. What do you do with Mike White? You gotta ask yourself that, man. You gotta ask yourself that. Continuing on here. From the Palm Beach Post. Their observations from today. Tagovailoa wore the orange jersey, obviously, because he was the best player in the previous practice. They added Girls Just Want to Have Fun by Cyndi Lauper to the list. No healthy dose of disco. Kader Kohu, surprise standout as a rookie season, recorded a sack, as did Van Ginkel and Malik Reed. So there you go. Van Ginkel got a sack. Would love to know if that was off the edge or inside. In case of Thompson victimization, Bryce Thompson intercepted Skylar Thompson today. Tagovailoa found Jaylen Waddle on a slant for a crisp pickup. Tyler Kroft making a leaping grab over Bethel in the end zone. Emmanuel Ogbah, coming back from a triceps tear, recorded a sack. Freddie Swain had a gain of about 25 yards with a rainbow of a throw from Thompson. Jason Sanders connected on a couple of long-range field goal tries. Tyreek Hill was among the notable players either limited or not working today. Others included Armstead, Phillips, Needham, Brandon Jones, Trill Williams. Zach Sealer did attend today but didn't work out, and Connor Williams did not attend and was not excused. So those are the Palm Beach observations for all of y'all. All right, there you go. A little Palm Beach, so good for you. And something I thought you guys would like to hear about, we're going to get into in a sec, but I want to play. We've talked about Ramsey. I talked about in Cam Smith in his prospect profile. I want to talk about what Ramsey talked about, the star role in Fangio's defense. Check this out.
It's just different roles. Defense may ask different responsibilities for certain people at certain times or certain games or moments or whatever the case may be. And when you have a guy or a few guys who are able to be versatile and play multiple positions, corner, safety, nickel, whatever the case may be, right? Play different techniques, be able to play different schemes and coverages and all that. It's a plus for the defense. So not only myself, but there's a handful of guys who can do that in this defense, and that's a big positive. So just getting everybody to learn, the system in its entirety is really good.
See, that's huge because remember, he played that star role on the Rams defense, right? And, it's key when you run a nickel defense. It allows Ramsey to play up at the line of scrimmage, which is one of his strengths, helping run support. You should basically be used like a chess piece against the pass under Fangio principles, allowing him to move before, after the snap, redirect from depth. And, Jalen's basically telling you guys that multiple people on this defense can play that role, which is huge. Huge. So, people need to realize this, we got so many guys who are versatile and so many guys who can play different spots. Man, I'm telling you, it's going to be something special to behold, man. It really is. It really is going to be something special to take on. And I wanted to read this quote to you from Daniel Fusi, and they're talking about, I want you guys to see what Ramsey said after practice. I mean, check this out, what he said here. He said, "Y'all looking on the outside, y'all may think that it's zone, but it's not. It's a very complex defense, and it's a lot less zone than you think. Especially under Coach Vic, it's a lot less zone, which is great because you have guys who can play a lot of man. But you also have guys who can play the zone schemes and stuff like that. It excites me just in general. Having these guys on the team, this is the best defense I've played in. Like I said, I've played in it for the past 3 years anyway, so I'm excited for that. But Vic is kind of like one of the guys who invented the defense. So it's exciting to have him as a coach and to see how he views it and see how we call things and see how he leans towards as far as the schemes and coverages and stuff like that." I mean, remember that Jacksonville defense he was a part of, where if they would have had anything better than Blake Bortles, they could have probably went to the Super Bowl that year when Telvin Smith was at the top of his game, Posluszny was still around, et cetera, et cetera. Then you look at that Rams defense, and this man said this is the best defense he's been a part of. I'm telling you, I don't know how people cannot be excited heading into this year. It's going to be huge, man. It's going to be a massive, massive year for the Miami Dolphins, for this defense. And I literally cannot wait. I cannot wait for even the first preseason snap, even joint practices. Because joint practices is when we really start to get answers, right? In the offseason, joint practices is when you really start to get answers, because you're not just practicing against yourself, practicing against other teams out here. So, listen, I am so hyped about this season, and I mean, you guys should be too. This is, we're day one of minicamp, and I'm grinning like the village idiot right now because this is just the tip of the spear. We're just getting a taste of it right now with training camp. Obviously a little over a month and a half away. So, man, check your pulses, right, Pro Special. Check it. And I'm with you, Q. I cannot wait for the pads to go on. I can't wait for when we're sharing clips. You guys can hear the cracks of those boys colliding, man. I cannot wait. Remember, we got 2 days of mini camp left. We've got tomorrow. Well, I'll be live earlier than normal with Richmond and ball game just to avoid conflict with the Miami Heat, obviously. And then we'll recap the third and final day on Thursday on Fin Too Deep with myself and Neil Driscoll. Another thing I'm going to probably start work on this week. I think I'm going to do it, ladies and gentlemen. I think the next prospect profile, I think we're going to do Mitchell Agude. We've seen all the hype around him, and we're going to have a lull between minicamp until we get to training camp. I think our next prospect profile is going to be on the UDFA Mitchell Agude, just because of how this man has been showing out. And we'll dive into the film, and we'll go in on him, and we'll see what we got. All right. So we got a lot of content coming your way, ladies and gentlemen. Be sure to be on the lookout for us tomorrow night. The Finish Line, myself, Richmond Webb, and Mr. Ballgame will recap day 2 of OTAs. You know where to find it, right here on Phinside The NFL before the Miami Heat get it going. So until next time, guys, I appreciate all y'all for coming through. You already know what time it is, baby. Fins up all day, every day. Love all y'all. Have a fantastic night.